Right, so today I want to talk about this tweet from Stefan Molyneux and basically want to call out the mainstream media and all these virtue signaling people out there. Basically, he goes on to say the media believes that calling the China virus incites violence against East Asians, but constantly calling whites privileged and racist does not incite violence against whites. Such manipulative and contemptible liars. Now, for people questioning the second point here, whites are significantly more likely to be victims of hate crimes from racial minorities than vice versa. So for all the people that the minute you hear racist violence and whatnot, immediately think it's a black guy getting attacked. On average, it doesn't actually happen nearly as much as you would think. Not that it doesn't happen. I know there's going to be people that, there's the handful of people that constantly watch these videos to try and find something and completely take it completely out of context. I'm not saying there's no racism against blacks. Obviously, there's plenty of it, but I'm just saying on average. But anyways, you have the mainstream media and a lot of these mostly lefty celebrities and just general population, people from the general population that are claiming that calling it, the China virus is racist. And like I mentioned too in my past video, um, what world do you live in, like I said, where being worried about imaginary racism, and like I say, it's imaginary. None of these people are calling the Spanish flu racist. None of those kind of people are calling, the Middle Eastern, whatever it is, the MERS one, racist. But yet somehow this is what they're worried about. Now, here's what's really happening here. The Chinese government is trying to cover up the fact that they're basically exclusively responsible for this kind of stuff. Like I always mention too, the Trudeau government deserves its fair share of criticism, no doubt about that. I don't care if you're a Trudeau supporter. If you don't admit that, then you're just a completely partisan, biased, person. Um, but anyway, yeah, calling this kind of stuff racist is just insane. The Chinese government is clearly covering this stuff up. The Chinese government clearly is paying off the World Health Organization. So I think taking anything that the World Health Organization is saying is not worth anything. I would believe the conspiracy theorist guy with a blog before I would believe the World Health Organization at this point because they're clearly paid off by China. Like clearly, they're literally basically being the Chinese government's like PR agency basically like whatever the Chinese state broadcaster is. It's basically the World Health Organization what they're doing right now. So got to call them out too. But anyway, like I say too, like I know people, like I've heard of people that have committed suicide. I've heard of people that they may lose their house, they may lose their job, they may lose their life savings. Maybe they're not going to be able to retire now, but yet you're worried about racism. Like, are you joking? And that's the thing too that the bubble that some of these people, mainly on the left, live in is absolutely astounding. Like astounding. Like someone who grows up in a religious cult isn't in as much of a bubble as these people are. Like seriously, that is not hyperbole. I wish it was, but it isn't. Like I say too, like this is serious stuff too. This isn't the difference between a five, are we going to tax people at 20% or 25 so we can pay for more free stuff? Like that's the common political debate out there. No, this is literally people losing their jobs, losing their house, or risking at risk to be losing at risk to be losing their life savings. What I'm saying too, people are committing suicide because they don't know how they're going to pay their bills, and yet you're worried about racism. Like, come on, come on, like the hubris and like I say, the amount of the bubble that you live in is absolutely astounding too. And I really need to drill this point home because people do not seem to grasp it whatsoever. And that just comes from these people on the left that they have this ideology that it's basically defend communism at all costs, even though they'll claim they're not communists. And I don't think most of them are communists, but there's this thing on the left that I don't know exactly why. I'd have to look into it more, but there's this even a lot of moderates too that I've talked about that they have this visceral reaction of not wanting to criticize communism. I don't know exactly what it is, but um, it's just something that goes on, and it really astounds me too. Like I say too, the Chinese government is buying off a lot of the media. They're lying. They've been lying this whole time, and they deserve the criticism for this kind of stuff. Criticizing anybody else is stupid. Like I say too, when it comes to an individual level too, like in individual countries, like I mentioned, I've mentioned 10 million times it seems like at this point, but I always got to show the caveat in there. The Trudeau government deserves a lot of criticism. They should have closed the borders long ago. The Trump government closed the borders a decent amount of, quite a bit earlier than the Trudeau government did, but I still think that they could have been more on the ball too. So don't throw me this, oh, you're just biased against Trudeau. No, come on. The Trump government should have been more on the ball too, but they were more on the ball than the Trudeau government. There's no debating that. And that's the thing too, that on one hand, the Trudeau government, you guys are racist for closing the borders, and then a week later, you were going to close the borders because it's clearly helping. Like, you guys have got to be the dumbest. And like I say too, I don't think you're dumb. Let me take that back. The bubble that you're in too. That's the thing about these people on the left. That the bubble that you guys are in, is it really astounds me. The last point here being too is that constantly attacking white people, that's something again that's getting super old, that I've literally talked to people, like people that are like not even political, that I've never even talked to, and somehow we're just like mid conversation about stuff that isn't even that political. I've heard two people now I've talked to in like the last 3 or 4 months at work, both not white people, that have said that have literally brought this kind of stuff up, that hey, who cares about this kind of stuff anymore? Like, white privilege. Like one guy said white privilege, such a stupid idea, and the other guy said, yeah, like all the black people, yeah, you were freed from slavery over 150 years ago. Like, stop complaining about it already. What's keeping you poor is these BS government, mostly Democrat and liberal policies. But anyway, that's another video in and of itself. But like I say, I wanted to do this kind of stuff. Now, the reason that they're defending China basically is that, well, number one, Asians tend to vote left, on average too. I don't think it's a massive majority like black women or some. I'm just using them as an example, but I think it's still a pretty, probably 55-60% if I was just guessing off the top of my head. And the reason that they hate whites so much is whites, are specifically white men, are the least likely to vote left, which is why they hate whites so much and why they're constantly attacking them. It's very simple to understand too. Like, that's something that's easy to understand. And like I say too, a lot of people probably at home now, I mean, most people who are watching this probably understand how bad the mainstream media is, but you probably have family out there, who are out there, that they're at home, they got nothing else to do. They're watching CBC, they're watching CTV, they're watching CNN if you're in the States, or MSNBC, and they're just being fed this BS propaganda, and you really need to be on your ball, and you really need to be talking with them, I guess, is because that propaganda they're being shoved down their throats is pretty bad. And like I say too, it's basically just Chinese propaganda too. That China's already communist. Most of these lefties want to go as far towards communism as you can go, if not communism, and they're getting their way. So like I say, I wanted to make a video about this because this is a huge issue. And like I say too, I made multiple videos in the last year, um, about how there's going to be a recession coming at some point. There's going to be a recession coming at some point. I said that multiple times. My expertise when it comes to the markets and all this kind of stuff is amateur, and I still could tell beyond a shadow of a doubt that there will be a recession coming. It's here. It came a lot earlier than we thought, but I just wanted to bring that up because a lot of people like to pretend that, oh, this completely caught us off guard. Like, how could we have known? Like, no, no, no. You gone 12 years without a recession. We knew it was coming at some point. But anyway, that's a completely different topic in and of itself. So I'm going to leave it there. If you like the video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. I do have my PayPal link in the description. I do have an email address for e-transfer. I appreciate any donations, but all I ask at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already.